Hey, what's going on, everybody? Video 44 coming at you with another video. So, I want to revisit the Dallas Mavericks KP trade because it doesn't make any sense even after I've had time to think about it. If you want to get rid of KP at $33 million for 3 years, I don't have a problem with that. But what did they bring back? Davis Bertans is widely understood as one of the worst contracts in the league. He's a guy, if he's not shooting the three, he's not doing anything, and he's not shooting very well this season. Spencer Dinwiddie is a player who we know can really go, but Spencer Dinwiddie is a guy who's coming back from injury. Spencer Dinwiddie is a guy who it's been reported didn't get along with players in Washington and they couldn't wait to get rid of him. So if the logic is to get rid of a player that you never see play that's on a bad contract, wouldn't it make more sense to get rid of him for something that would bring you back some salary value? Now, I have no problem with them signing Dorian Finney-Smith. I do think he probably got a little more than I would have gave him, and that could potentially be a bad contract early on. He's a nice complimentary Swiss Army knife player who can do a lot of things and who is really starting to fill up the box score, and he's getting better and better. But I look at that as not part of this because they only freed up $2 million. So, in looking at the trade tracker, that's literally all they saved themselves in getting rid of KP and bringing in Davis Bertans, who's a worse contract in some people's eyes than KP's, and Spencer Dinwiddie, who spent the last couple years either hurt or being complained about. I just don't understand. And then you top that off with the notion that they got guards everywhere. You know, you're looking at the team that got, obviously, Jalen Brunson, who's ascending in talent. He's getting better every second. They don't think they're going to be able to re-sign him. But they didn't free up any money to re-sign him. They just brought in somebody on top of him. And then you think about, okay, they're bringing in Davis Bertans who can shoot a little bit. Okay, but like, your defense is worse for him. Right? You're going to put him on the floor in place of KP. I'd rather have KP. Like, all things pointing in the direction of KP finally being healthy. He provides size and rim protection, all the things I complain about as a Laker that we don't have. Do I want his contract at 3 years at $33 million? Probably not, based on his injury history. And, you know, that is a thing. But at the same time, it's like, fine. If you want to move on from him, I have no problem with that. But bringing in another guard on top of guards when you already are Luka Doncic, you know, focused. Your whole offense is focused around Luka. So I could argue, not only did you need to not bring in another guard, but chances are you probably should have traded Jalen Brunson for like picks or something. For something that, like look at picks that are coming around. Teams are getting picks left and right. For some reason, picks values are seemingly lower during this trade deadline, in my opinion. But like, you look at some of the moves that were made. Sacramento, the what it took for Sacramento to get a guy like Sabonis, and I think that would have been a better situation for them if they could have somehow landed Sabonis. And you figure what the Indiana Pacers were asking for, I'm sure they would have been happy to bring back Jalen Brunson. I mean, he's not as good as Tyrese Halliburton, but he's somebody who is, in my opinion, going to be ascending in talent as well. Someone in the, I don't know. I think Halliburton and him are in different lanes, but not as far apart as maybe you would think, in considering what it took to get, you know, who they have, who they gave up rather in KP. So I just feel like Dallas messed up bad. Like, I think that what I'm sensing is that they overvalue Davis Bertans. Like, he's some type of player who's going to do more than what he's going to bring to the table. And it's like, how did you do that? How did you do that? Like, now granted, I'll say this. I love the spacing that they're going to be able to provide themselves with Davis Bertans, with, you know, a guy like Tim Hardaway Jr. They got some real shooting there. So it's not like they can't use Davis, but you're going to give up a lot defensively when he's on the floor. And you guys are ascending team in defensive, defensively, they're starting to become one of the best defensive teams in the league. So you bring in a non-defensive player who doesn't really do a whole lot but shoot, and he hasn't been shooting well. And then it's like, okay, Spencer Dinwiddie. I like Spencer Dinwiddie. I'd love to have Spencer Dinwiddie on our team. But for your team, When the ball's in Luka Doncic's hands 80% of the time and he's creating for shooters, now you're going to render Spencer Dinwiddie as a backup guard at the 2 guard or something? And you're moving Jalen Brunson to the 2 guard? How is this working? What happens there? So it's just a weird fit. I understand that they were trying to move on from KP. Maybe it just came down to a last-minute situation and they felt they had to get rid of KP for some stuff that maybe wasn't reported. Maybe he and some people didn't get along or something. They just had to move on. Sort of like I look at the situation with the Lakers and, when we gave up Zubac to try to get rid of not Malik Beasley, but Michael Beasley, which I still think is stupid as hell to this very second. But, maybe it was one of those situations where really like, okay, we just have to do something to make sure this guy is not here. But I don't know, man. I just think if it had gotten that bad at the last minute, then I understand. Like, let's say KP came in an hour before the trade deadline and punched somebody in the face. This is how this makes. That's the only way that makes sense to me, honestly. Like, something happened at the last minute, because you have to understand, shopping KP around the league. Yeah, I understand his value is low, but there would have been takers. I do not believe his value is as low as it's been reported, based on the fact that we've seen him healthy. See, the thing about it is, when he got to Dallas, his value was not as good because obviously we hadn't seen him in 2 years. And I haven't been paying attention to Dallas, so I don't know what's going on with him. I don't own him on any of my fantasy leagues. I traded him for Zion Williamson, which early on looked like a mistake. Still looked like a mistake given the fact that Zion ain't played at all. But nevertheless, I just haven't had a chance to look at his numbers, so I don't really know what's going on there. But I can tell you this. I would rather have KP at $33 million than Spencer Dinwiddie and Davis Bertans at $15 million apiece for Dallas. Not for Dallas. Not for y'all. Because y'all have to understand that Jalen Brunson's even better than you've been able to show, based on the fact that you do have Luka Doncic holding the ball all the time and creating for other people. I think Jalen Brunson's even better than this. Now you're further pulling him away from being able to do what it is that he does. Could the strategy be to lower his value? Make him look worse than he is in the second half of the season so you can find a way to keep him? Because that's all you're going to do. It's sort of like what happened to De'Aaron Fox when they drafted, when the Kings drafted Davion Mitchell, and also put, of course, Tyrese Halliburton in place as well. What it did is it masked De'Aaron Fox's true value. It made his contract look worse because he's getting less usage. I can argue right now that Tyrese Halliburton out, you're going to see the best out of De'Aaron Fox once again, because he's never lost anything. De'Aaron Fox, a guy who can drop 40 tomorrow, right now. 40 and 8. He can do that. I have no question about De'Aaron Fox's talent. His contract looked terrible, but I think that might have been why, because he was in a logjam at point guard. So essentially, you're going to do the same thing to him. You understand what I'm saying? It's like what happened with Phoenix when they had Brandon Knight. Can't even remember my own name. Brandon Knight, Isaiah Thomas, and Goran Dragic at the same time in the beginning of all three of their primes. It was like, this doesn't fit. These guys are all very, very good and entering their prime, and you got them stuck together so their value doesn't actually represent what it is they're capable of doing on your team. All these different guard log jams. I think the Orlando Magic have a guard log jam, but the good thing about their situation is one of their guards has been out for the season. So you don't see how bad that guard log jam is. If you would have saw Markelle Fultz, healthy in that situation, Cole Anthony's value would be lower, and obviously Jalen Suggs' value wouldn't be as it's ascending to right now. So I just don't like guard log jams, especially when you have a team that's sole purpose is to put the ball in one guy's hands and have him create for himself and others. It's sort of like the problem I have with the Atlanta Hawks, because they have so many different players that need rhythm shots that could use the ball in their hands, but they're Trae Young eccentric. Like, the whole thing is surrounding Trae Young. So it's like all these different pieces. It would be better to condense those pieces to picks and defensive players and Dorian Finney-Smith type of players for Atlanta, so that they can have the most out of him without asking for, for the ball. I think of a guy like Ben Simmons would have fit just fine in Atlanta for that reason. He fits just fine in Brooklyn for that reason, because he can play with ball-eccentric players without taking shots away from them. You know, he's probably best with the ball in his hands, but he's not looking to score like that. And if he is looking to score, it's in transition, fast breaks, things of that nature. He's looking to dump the ball to you. So, like, Ben Simmons would have been great for the Dallas Mavericks as well, in my opinion. He would have helped assist with already a great defense. He would have made them that much better. Him and Luka Doncic, I think, could have played off each other just fine. Luka would have been taking all the shots. Guys like Jalen Brunson would still be getting the ball. And I don't know. I just feel like the vision for this team is incomplete at this point. And what we're seeing is something that probably just doesn't make any sense, because they probably had another move that they wanted to make that just didn't get done. That's another thing that makes sense about that move. Maybe their intention was to probably move someone else and they just couldn't make that move. But now you got Spencer Dinwiddie. I mean, don't get it twisted. When you have talented players, it's great. You know what I mean? You love having talented players, because if something happens to Luka Doncic, or if something happens to one of those players, you're not missing anything. You can have Jalen Brunson and Spencer Dinwiddie down there playing big minutes and giving you big production if they're both right, which I think they will be. I just don't like that situation. Now, I don't see it the same way in Indiana, because they have a little bit of a guard log jam too. But I just love the cerebral ability of all those guards. And I think some of those guys can be switched and swapped into different positions. Like, you know, I look at their situation. They got, of course, Tyrese Halliburton now. You know, they got Malcolm Brogdon. Of course, they got Buddy Yield. They got the rookie that they picked up, the older rookie whose name is escaping me, but he's really, really talented, scoring the ball left and right. So that's a log jam as well. But I just think that it just fits better, because all those guys can pass, all those guys can shoot, all those guys can swap, and it makes more sense. They're all different heights, that kind of thing. Tyrese is tall, so you can move him to 3 if you want to. He can do whatever. So it's one of those situations where I don't look at it the same. Plus, they're rebuilding. They don't have a Luka Doncic there, you know what I mean? So it's like they can share. But Dallas, nah, that's not your situation. I just am wondering if this was a situation where you guys were hoping to make another move and it just didn't happen. Because that makes a lot more sense to me. I wonder, and this is a wonder for me because I don't know, but I wonder if they're going to be unhappy with their size situation now. You know, the one thing that KP brings is a 7-footer. And what can a 7-footer do? Easy buckets, tip ins, block shots. And when he's healthy, we know he's a good player. I mean, we don't think he's going to be a superstar like he was supposed to be in New York before the injury, but KP is still a center, can stretch the floor like crazy. And if he ever gets into good shape, he's going to act a fool. We know that. And it's just about him getting in shape and putting himself in a position to get in shape. And I think, you know, I mean, with Washington, he will be one of the most important players going forward, especially given the fact that Bradley Beal is out. So, you know, I look at the tandem between him and my guy, what's his name? Thomas Bryant, when they're both right, look out, because they can both shoot threes, they can both rebound the ball, they both can block shots. Like, that is a situation where you're hoping Thomas Bryant can turn back into who he was before he got hurt. And you're thinking the same thing about KP. So I'm not mad at Washington. I love what they got. Plus, they got all the assets in the world. You look at the size that Kuzma provides. They can move Kuzma to the 3 and have those 3 guys in the same place. It's almost like you can have a little bit of a dynamic like Cleveland has with those bigs, you know, with that trio there. So the future is super bright for Washington. All they have to do is just figure out Bradley Beal. You know, I'd trade him for something. You don't have to trade him for nothing good. Just start the rebuild process with these players. Get Bradley Beal off your team for some picks or something. They're going to suck next year, but it's okay because they have a lot of talent that can ascend around KP. And push come to shove, you just move KP. And, it might not be the easiest thing in the world, but I think they got him for the cheap anyway. They didn't give up hardly anything to get him. So you feel confident that even if he's not himself, you like your return better than what you gave up. Put it like that if you're Washington. So I don't know. I just wanted to revisit that trade. I don't know that it sucks per se, because I do think that Davis Bertans will play much better catching the ball from Luka Doncic. You know what I mean? He's going to look better in Dallas than he did in Washington. But that doesn't move me. I like players that can do a lot of different things. You know, that's my thing. I like Dorian Finney-Smith. He can do a little bit of everything. But a guy like Davis Bertans on that contract, that's one of the worst contracts in the game, man. I just don't understand why that was desirable to you guys. I definitely respect turning 2 into 1. Don't get it twisted. And I also understand that and I may have already said this, but Jalen Brunson may be moving on at the end of the season, especially since you didn't free up no money for him. So I can totally see you seeing Dinwiddie as someone that maybe you want to keep in place just in case that happens. But if Dinwiddie starts having trouble again, or if he starts being a problem, or if he's not playing well, that's not a good replacement even then. So it's just, I don't know. I think Dallas took some steps backwards with this trade. I would have loved to at least seen him get an asset for him. Maybe try to get a second round pick in this trade or two. I don't know, but I don't like it. I don't like it. I think the league has misvalued KP's value. And the reason why is because he's still 7'3", he can still shoot threes. And that is valuable. I don't care what nobody say. That is valuable. If he's not 100%, you just shut him down and wait for him to get there. You put him through a nutrition program, you put him through a weight program, and you invest in KP. Like the Knicks should have done and like Dallas should have done. That's what you do, Washington. You invest in him and Thomas Bryant. You make sure they come back next season in tip-top shape. And if you start that process now, there's no question they will be. So that's what I got to say, man. I'm higher on KP than the world is. I really am, because I'm sitting over here with a Laker team that ain't got no centers, and I hate life. Do you understand what I'm saying? I would love for KP to fall in our hands right now. I'd trade Westbrook for KP right now without any question. I would, because I know how bad we need size. So it's one of those situations where it's like, I'll take my chances, man. At any rate, I've run out of time because I forgot to free up space, so I'm going to leave it at that. But, yeah, that's just what I think, man. That trade is, it's not good. It ain't good at all. BDF 44.